Now, here's Mr. Midnight, Jack Delroy.
Oh, good evening, night owls, and thank you for allowing me into your living rooms once again.
In a time when Johnny Carson was king of late night, a time of unrest and distrust, a time of fear and violence, one talk show host attempts to commune with the devil. This halfway to Halloween, we review Late Night with the Devil, directed by Cameron and Colin Carinas.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Clubhouse Movies Podcast. I'm your host, Marc Rubalcaba, joined once again by Mr. Abel Pineda. Today we're reviewing Late Night with the Devil. And happy halfway to Halloween to you, Abel.
Woo! Happy halfway to Halloween to you, man. It's getting good.
You know,
it's getting good.
I had never heard of halfway to Halloween before until I started noticing like parties for it. You know? I walk halfway to Halloween. I'm like, dude, that's freaking awesome.
Yeah, I noticed it first because I was on Instagram and we have a Disney page, and I was like, you know what? Let me just go on there, and I look, and I'm just like, oh, what? Why is everybody posting a picture of a pumpkin? And I realized all the hashtags said halfway to Halloween. I'm like, well, would you look at that? There's halfway to summer, halfway to Halloween. Where is halfway to Thanksgiving?
Oh, halfway to every month is halfway to Christmas. I feel like, especially how the Christmas cycle comes sooner and sooner. But maybe I feel like halfway to Halloween should be the adult Halloween, you know, and then proper Halloween should be for the kids. Because
I agree. Halloween should be for the kids because it's just them going to get candy and dress up. And
trashy adults tend to like occupy late night Halloween, so. Give proper halfway to Halloween to the trashy adults who want to, get drunk at a bar or something and dress up like idiots. But anyway, today we will be reviewing Late Night with the Devil. And this movie has gotten a lot of buzz. A lot of people want to watch it. A lot of people really like it. And we thought we'd give it a crack. And I liked it for the most part. And I think that's where I'm going to start.
And I'm going to say I liked it. And it wasn't because of the scary nuances and just the overall horror of it. That's not why I like this movie.
I agree, too, because I actually, there was a time where I used to watch every single episode of Jay Leno and every single episode of Conan O'Brien when they came out. And it was fun. And, even though this is late 90s, early 2000s, but then I watched every episode of Jon Stewart also. And, this reminded me a lot of like the heyday of late night. And I would see clips from Johnny Carson and I could say like, that guy was funny,
Yeah, no, he was the king of late night. There was a reason everyone, even to this day, they still refer to Johnny Carson when they're talking about late night. And I'll say right now, my favorite late night show host is Conan O'Brien. I think he kind of embodies him.
Mm-hmm. Yes, this show, even though it takes place in the 70s, is very much of the Conan O'Brien like ilk, and I say that because he has a self-depreciating humor. He has a sidekick, and a bit that Conan always did was it's Sweeps Week, and he was the only one who actually talked about Sweeps Week.
Yeah,
and
he's like, so please like my show, so that way I can come back.
Yeah, pretty much. And this actor who plays Jack Delroy, I wrote it down. We know him as Polka Dot Man from
Polka Dot Man. Yeah,
Polka Dot
Suicide Squad. Suicide Squad.
And also he was in The Dark Knight. I don't know if you remember, but he was also.
Yes, I do.
He was ambulance guy.
David Desmalchian.
Okay. David Desmalchian plays Jack Delroy, late night host of
and
Night
I will
Owls.
Say, he plays him expertly. I mean, the way this guy can manipulate his face to just get the emotion across, I'm gonna say, man, it was a treat to watch this guy act.
Everyone brought their A game. The acting was great. And I also have to say, like, even though the late night callbacks were great, the callbacks to 80s horror was great. 80s, late 70s horror, and I think particularly was Cronenberg. Cronenberg made a lot of these body horror movies, and one of which was Scanners.
Okay.
And there's a famous scene in Scanners where a dude get his head explodes. He might have gotten the head explode meme at some point or another. And that movie was starring Michael Ironsides, who actually narrated the beginning of this movie. But also,
Scanners released in 1981, by the way.
Yeah, so it's definitely late 70s, early 80s body horror. And then there was a scene in Poltergeist that we mentioned before, which was actually a PG-13 horror movie where
crazy, by the way,
where there was some possession going on, and a guy peeled his face apart.
You had that. Then you had you almost kind of want to say you had what was that? God, I can't even remember the name of the. It's probably the same movie. I'm just losing my mind here. Just the way the character when her face transformed or transfigured into the possession, it was like you're like, whoa! Even the face is a callback to classic horror.
Oh yeah, and I go back to Cronenberg, but I think one of the scariest movies that I actually haven't seen maybe in a hell of a long time was Cronenberg's The Fly. And that was with Jeff Goldblum and Gina Davis.
Yes, I saw. Dude, I actually watched that movie. That movie was crazy.
And and that movie was crazy body horror heavy. And this is before CG. This is when they had to make dummies. And I think
it was grotesque.
And I think the movie that actually started this all was Raiders of the Lost Ark, where at the end all the people's heads exploded. Remember?
Yeah. It looked like candle just melting.
Melted candle wax. That's what it was.
Wax. Yeah. It was, but it got the point across. It was so watching that as a kid, and I'm just like, oh my God, people's heads are literally exploding and melting away.
And even now, to me, CG horror doesn't hold a candle. And I think one of my complaints about this movie is that there's let's say CG electrical effects that kind of happen throughout this thing.
I wasn't okay with those. And I get that some of them kind of felt like they were a nod to the 80s in terms of just super ridiculous halation because of the old lenses they were using. Yeah. And just the way that George Lucas created that put reflectant tape on the lightsaber sticks. It felt like that, but fake.
Yes, and I was kind of hoping it was like the old school painted electricity effect from back in the day.
That would have been awesome.
And just put it in there, or do more video effects. And I think that was my biggest complaint about it.
Yeah.
And I will say that maybe it's actually not as scary as I would have liked it to be.
And to tag on that video effects. So for me, the most endearing part about this movie was the fact that the majority of it was in 4:3.
Oh, and it was possibly shot on video.
Yeah, possibly shot on video. The way the audio was coming through, it sounded like an old VHS tape recorder, and it was so well done, and not only if it wasn't filmed that way, I don't think the movie would have even been remotely entertaining.
I think they should have went full retro on this movie and made it completely a found footage, because there were some intercuts of behind the scenes footage that was shot in black and white,
16:9. I didn't like that. That was jarring to me.
The way they did it was a little jarring, like you said, and I feel like it kind of took me out of it a little bit. And if they kept the whole thing like an actual episode of the Tonight Show that went long for whatever reason, and figure out a way to during the what do you call it? And I like the transition cards. Like in the old days, we'll be right back. Coming back, because
those were great.
They were very Late Night with Conan O'Brien-esque. With the old pictures, and then they had a nice owl motif. I got the cats, unfortunately. Well, not unfortunately, mostly fortunately, but I don't have any owls. But it was just really cutesy, owl Halloween spooky stuff, and seeing
even the color palette chosen for the show was great. It was awesome. It was all encompassing, and I'll give it that. Whoever designed the sets, whoever the design team, the production team, top notch production. It was great.
Yeah, and see it for that, and I do think a lot of people will find it really scary. Like you said, we're a little desensitized to it, and but I will say this: I think I've seen actually very recently a lot of found footage movies, within the last year, I'm going to say, and movies I've never seen before, and the new Blair Witch, and then some of the Hell House movies that just came out. Mm-hmm. And I think actually found footage movies are the only ones that scare me, which is just kind of like when it's done right, it's creepy.
When it's done right, it actually has that creep factor where you're watching it and you kind of feel the hairs raise up on the back of your neck and you're just like, all right, this one is doing what it's supposed to do.
Well, it's like something is going wrong with real people. That I think that's where it is. And I think with me is this late night bit kind of started to feel like a bit from here, every now and again, and my brain never went to this is reality. And I think the kind of more shocking, even though I wasn't like a huge fan of Joker, was remember when he was I think the scene though when he was on like late night with what was his name? Who plays in all the Godfather movies and the
is it Robert De Niro?
Yeah, Late Night with Robert De Niro. I can't believe I forgot Robert De Niro. When Joker was on Late Night with Robert De Niro and he shoots him. To me, that was real and creepy. And then they went to like having technical difficulties.
That felt so real. Like when it happened, I didn't see it coming at all. I was just so surprised by it.
Well, like there's a I think a rule in Batman is don't invite Joker on your late night show. Because in the Dark Knight Returns original comic, the Joker did kill everyone in a late night show, and which is funny because in the cartoon, The Dark Knight Returns, where Peter Weller played Batman, by the way, very well. In that story, or in that cartoon, I should say, the Joker was voiced by Michael Emerson, who was the bad guy in Lost. But the talk show hosts were voiced by Conan O'Brien and Andy Richter.
Wow.
Yeah. So
that's so freaking
I remember
cool,
watching it and I'm like, dude, I think this is actually Conan O'Brien and Andy Richter. So they came back and actually did a talk show with the Joker where the Joker killed them too. And I think if Heath Ledger had been able to be in The Dark Knight Rises, we would have seen a similar thing happen in that.
I'm sure. I'm absolutely sure.
Because that's part of that Dark Knight Returns kind of story. But yeah, let's get into the movie. This movie, Late Night with the Devil. There's a lot going on. And I almost feel like that the prologue was studio mandated, but it was narrated by Michael Ironsides. And by the way, I don't know if you also remember he was the bad guy in Total Recall, but he was also
absolutely.
He was also probably the most known voice of Splinter Cell. If you remember, he's got this big smoky voice, Splinter Cell, back in the day.
That's his voice?
That's Michael Ironsides. Yeah, he was like Sam Fisher.
I was always trying to place him. I'm like, who is this guy voicing Sam Fisher's voice?
And he was also the general in Starship Troopers, the one who lost his arm.
Yep. He was.
So he's definitely around. Definitely remember him, and I still see him acting today. And he narrated this, so I think that was the callback to the early '80s strongman. But this movie does start with a prologue talking about host Jack Delroy and how his wife had cancer, but also most notably, and I really think they should not have included this prologue or kept it like kind of maybe start. Like you watch late night with shows. I think what I would have done was had that be the tail end of the previous show or something.
Yes.
Talking about the times.
Yeah, that would have been great.
Because they do talk about the times being during the Vietnam War and, type of distrust. That should have been like because I used to watch The Tonight Show, right? And before that was like 2020. So they should have had like 5 minutes of 2020 like investigative journalism before
the thing is,
the Jack Delroy show or something. They
usually started at all time 11:35, 12:05.
Yeah, because the news might have went long. Yeah.
That would have been awesome. And then it just starts without mention, just wipe into the show. Perfect.
Yeah, and that would have been so it would have been one big unbroken take, like you were back in 1978 watching Late Night with the Devil.
What you are about to see is the recently discovered master tape of what went to air that night, as well as previously unreleased behind-the-scenes footage.
But like I said, this movie does borrow a lot from Late Night with Conan O'Brien, and it's Halloween, so so it's definitely a good tie into Halloween, and I wrote it. The sidekick, his name was sidekick Gus. Gus looks a lot like Andy Richter, and he's dressed like the devil, so a bit of foreshadowing there. And playing the theremin, which is that woo device.
Oh, what do you got there, Gus? A theremin, Jack. It's a musical instrument.
And it was nice to see a monologue, like an old school, like kind of monologue. And it was kind of funny when when Jack Delroy kind of got into some political stuff. Everyone's like, "Ooh, like spicy political banter." And I think that's kind of why I stopped watching the Tonight Show when like it just became like 100% political banter.
Yeah, I'm like, come on, guys.
Yeah,
make it funny.
But meanwhile, here he just tongue in cheeks the spicy political banter there with Jimmy Carter humor. But anyway, the first, he does say that it's going to be a very special show. And during the prologue, they do mention that his wife died of cancer. And they also mentioned that he may or may not
died of lung cancer, having never smoked.
And they also mentioned that Jack Delroy may or may not be involved with the occult.
Oh yeah, with that what is it called?
The Night Owls, the Court of Owls, like
the Grove.
The Grove.
The Grove, which is like, if you like conspiracies, please do look into the Grove. Fall down that rabbit hole.
Yeah, and I was also thinking like, hey man, if there's a conspiracy where someone sold the devil, I'm pretty sure Johnny Carson would have been higher on that totem pole of.
Oh yeah. He was unbreakable
of spooky people. So those are the big learns from the prologue there. So he says a bunch of spooky things going to happen. There's going to be a parade, and there's also the skeleton man in the audience who they keep cutting to. He was so unnerving.
Yeah, just a stoic guy in there like a plant. He was just there the whole time.
Yeah, and they just kept cutting to him, and I was kind of hoping we'd see him
and we
more.
forgot to mention. So this. I don't know if you guys picked up on it, but this entire movie takes place during one show.
Yes.
A single episode.
And that's what I was saying. I wish they just kind of continued with the whole thing just being the show. And maybe during the cards, we just heard the background information of what was happening behind the scenes or something. Or like sometimes
I agree.
Sometimes on the Tonight Show, like they wouldn't cut back into the show, right? And they would like let something slip, like whoops, like they like move something.
Man, I love that stuff.
Yeah, that was like the best stuff. They should have done
like those things you hope to see because it was all before DVR, before you could rewind anything, and most people didn't have cable in their house, so you got to watch it happen live.
Yeah, so there's just a lot of little things that I think that would have sold this as perfect with a capital P.
They needed someone that was 35 and older to be on that set or at least in that room writing this. It would have been like, what are you guys going for? What is the shtick?
Yeah, and I almost feel like maybe someone with in this case, maybe there was a little bit of studio interference that that might have made a little more expository. Which cheapened a little bit more. The exposition cheapened this movie a little bit, and I'm definitely not knocking it. It was a lot of fun, but we could have they could have trusted the audience a little more.
It had so much more potential. Yeah, so much more.
Yeah, but
and I'll get there when I get there because I have something to say at the end.
Okay, so that's the monologue, like because and I wrote I kind of summarized this in acts because it always is a monologue.
I enjoyed it. I rewound it so I could hear it again.
Yeah, and then I said sequence one or guest one, Christu. Now,
or Zoltan, as I called him, because I couldn't remember his name.
Yeah, Christu, but he reminded me a lot of John Edwards, crossing over with John Edwards, doing his cold read to everybody. I'm getting a Bill, and I'm getting a Fred.
That is a throwback.
Yeah, and then the jerk in the audience are like, do you know Nancy? And he's like, yeah, I know Nancy. Well, she's here with us. Like, I hope not, because she's sleeping with the mailman. Like, yeah, that kind of thing.
Oh man,
but so dumb. Then he did start channeling. Apparently,
he went down to the front of the audience and saw this mother and daughter, and was just baiting them in, just reading them like a book.
Yeah, and
you dropped a Cheeto yesterday. Oh my god, I dropped like 3.
Yeah, so he talked to them, and they you don't know if it was real or not, or part of the act. And then just as they're going to cut to commercial to the next bit, Christu gets a sudden force push, and then there's what do you call it? There's static, and the static, the statics.
It fizzles the camera.
Actually happens much earlier on.
Yes,
it happens from the beginning, and he's seeing this twice. You notice that there's a little bit more going on that affects later in the movie. So there is a lot of foreshadowing. I did really appreciate that.
Yeah, and then you see Jack himself kind of always on edge, and it always happens just after the camera gets a little wonky, and it's not outright mentioned either. You don't catch on to this until like maybe halfway into the movie.
Yeah,
which we're kind of almost in right now.
Yeah, and so he starts saying like, "Oh, is there somebody needs to talk to somebody?" Because earlier he did say Halloween is the day for the dead to do their unfinished business, and it's the day
to commune with the living.
Commune with the living. He's looking for an unmarried man wearing a wedding ring. And as you know, when someone dies, till death do you part is part of the
contract.
The contract, yeah, the vow. Let's say. But anyway, no one responds, but we do know that Jack Delroy is wearing a wedding ring. So,
and we see him hit the ground too. We forgot to mention that Christo hits the ground when he gets that force push, and his eyes roll back so far that for a split second you see like the red of his eyes, and you're like, "Whoa, crap!"
Yeah, and this guy's
like, "There's the horror."
And you can always like the thing about Christo, it kind of reminded me of Borat. Like in the beginning, kind of had like a Borat thing going. And then they cut to commercial, and they're just saying like, "Oh, that's great." And then we got sleazy producer guy Leo. And he's like, "Yeah, man, good stuff." And he's like, "Oh, how'd you make the lights explode?" Because some lights exploded when he was talking to Leo. He's like, "Yeah, I don't know," just talking, just BS in there.
Things just happen.
Yeah. And then the next guest is Carmichael Haig. I'm going to call him Mr. Carr. He is a former magician and a hypnotist and now debunker of charlatans, right? And he kind of talks about some of the work he's doing, trying to debunk demonic possession and all these people.
Yeah.
And
he has a blank, not a blank check. He has a check with a $100,000 signed, and he's just waiting to put someone's name on it to prove him wrong.
And he essentially hasn't spent a nickel. I haven't spent a nickel. And how about this? Tonight he will up that from $100,000 to $500,000 to whoever can prove the existence of the paranormal, because life would be far more interesting if the paranormal existed. And that's his shtick in this. And then he starts ribbing Christu, the Borat medium guy, who actually starts freaking out, trying to understand. And at this point, Jack Delroy, the host, says, "He was talking to me." Yeah. I think it was my wife trying to commune from beyond the grave.
Yeah. Because he had said some name, Minnie or something.
Yeah, Minnie is mine.
I guess that was a pet name that they had for one another.
My private pet name. So Carr is very skeptical. He thinks he's creating the whole thing. But Christu is so tuned in to the afterlife that he throws up ectoplasm all over.
I was like, "Whoa, ectoplasm!"
Yeah, just black goo all over him. And has to be ambulanced away. And, you hear the ambulance in the distance of them putting him away. And then they cut to commercial break. And apparently, Christu did not survive this experience. Don't tell anyone.
That's out to death.
Everyone, it was coming out of every hole, apparently, in the ambulance.
Yeah.
They couldn't put a leak in it. Couldn't stop that leak.
No corks.
Not enough corks. Don't tell anyone. Poor what's his name? The Gus the psychic is already Gus is already ready to start an exorcism, and everyone's already freaking out. And then we meet the let's say the headliner, which is Dr. June and Lily. And Dr. June rescued Lily from a cult. Like it was like a Waco, Texas kind of thing where there was like a cult where they worshiped Satan. It was the Church of Abraxas and the and the evil reverend there.
Zoltan.
Yeah, Zoltan or whatever. They did all kinds of rituals and stuff. And then the police pretty much killed everybody. The place burnt down and they were able to save Lily.
Well, the police came in to kill everybody and they burnt themselves down.
Yeah, something like that.
And somehow the cops saved. There was one poor soul, as they said, and it just so happened to be Lily. She was supposed to be a child sacrifice because apparently the women that lived in this cult were just all about having babies to kill them.
Yeah.
Crazy.
So they found they saved Lily, and they also saved the Kandarian dagger there. And it's a Chekhov's gun.
What they saved? They saved the MacGuffin.
Yeah. No, it's the Chekhov's gun.
The Chekhov's gun.
That's a Chekhov's gun. We see it. We must use it.
Yeah. I was like, "Where's the Book of the Dead?"
Yeah, pretty much. So they keep showing. They bring Lily out, and Lily looks a lot like, to me, Megan. She looked like a human Megan.
Yeah, like someone made Megan from her.
Yeah. And she kept looking at the camera throughout the whole thing. Like, which camera do I look at?
Not just one camera. She knew which camera to switch to, and she was making like crazy eye contact with you, the viewer. Yeah. And that was pretty jarring and also very well done. It was cool.
Yeah. If you ever attended, like I saw the Jay Leno, I'm wearing a Jay Leno shirt. You attend the Tonight Show, the camera that is live lights up. Right.
Yeah.
So you know to show if something to the camera, they know what side they want to be the good side. But you're not supposed to look at the camera. It makes everyone uneasy.
Yeah. Supposed to look away from the camera. Look through it.
Look at who you're talking to. Like if you do make a movie and you want to make people feel uneasy, you have the guys. Yeah. I locked eyes with you on the TV screen there, and I'm like, whoa.
There you go. I know. I was trying not to look at the monitors.
Yeah, spooky stuff. Kitty cat. Need to make her dance again.
Trickery.
Okay, but anyway, they want to do a séance and try to commune with whoever Lily is in touch with, right? And then I think they cut to another commercial because they did show the Church of Abraxas video. And then they start bringing a chair out with restraints, and the sidekick Gus is already freaking out. He doesn't know what the hell's going on, and he knows about Christu dying, but don't tell anyone. And Jack gives him permission. You can leave whenever you want, or apologize. Yeah. But later on, Jack doesn't let people leave. He says, "Don't let anyone leave. Like we have to see this through." But anyway, they bring out a chair with restraints, and Dr. June is always reluctant. She's like, I can't do this. It's not a controlled environment. It's not a quiet place. There's cameras and electricity and an audience everywhere. We don't know what's going to happen. He goes, that's what live television is for.
Ridiculous.
Yeah. So Dr. June hypnotizes Lily in a very way. And this is a direct callback to Exorcist because she looks a lot like
yes, there it goes.
Yeah.
How could I not remember the name of that movie?
Yeah, she looks a lot like Reagan. I don't know if Reagan was the actress or the character, but But she definitely, I was actually waiting for her head to spin. She even mentions that. Should my head spin around? Because she's like, who are these people?
I mean, there is a nod. She makes someone's head spin.
Good one.
Good job.
Yeah. A lot of that. But she's creepy. And then she sees Jack and she goes, hello, Jack. I remember you in the woods. You were there.
Good to see you again, Jack.
Sorry, I don't believe we've been acquainted.
Don't be a fool.
And he's like, I know what you're talking about. Yes, you do.
Among the tall trees.
Among the tall trees. It's my black phone voice.
That's the grove. The grove that we're talking about.
Where he sold his soul to the devil, supposedly.
Yeah.
But anyway, they do that. The chair levitates. Her face changes. Like you say, looks like Exorcist demonic face.
And then she almost bites June's face off.
Yes.
That was close.
Yeah, lots of spooky stuff going on, and then they cut to commercial.
Yeah,
and they're like, "Oh, the behind the scenes, we got to stop this. You know, this is crazy." He's like, "No, we got to keep going," and they bring the show back, and now this is kind of where where everything starts hitting the fan in some believability and in some crazy way. But Carmichael, Mr. Carr, the skeptic, he goes, "Oh, obviously, she did a mass hypnosis." And, I could do a mass hypnosis. I'm better than anybody. I used to be the best. Or perhaps I still am, right? And then he bring out, I need a volunteer. And then everyone's like, oh, and then he's like, Gus, you'll do just fine. Yeah. He calls the sidekick, just imagine like Andy Richter looking,
I was like, oh, poor Andy. I was like, wait, it's a different guy.
Yeah, Gus. But I did like his joke. He's like, I just want to let you know that my wife likes my head on my shoulders, just like this.
Yeah, that was good, dude. That was so good. When he said that, I laughed out loud. Yeah. It was really good. Yeah.
Which might have been actually the last laugh of the movie now that I think about it.
Yeah,
I've seen it a few times. That was the last time when this Tonight Show changed from Tonight Show to Tonight's Sideshow. But anyway, they do the hypnosis thing, and then he's like, he filled the place up with fog, and then like Jack, the host, is like, you know what they say in show business, where there's fog, where there's smoke, there's a fog machine, that kind of thing. So he sits Andy, or he starts sitting Gus down. Gus. And he has the watch. He's like, you're getting sleepy, and then it turns into an old school whoosh, 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 whoosh. And his intention is to the camera. He goes, everybody look at my watch. Camera, stay on the watch. Everybody look at my. So he's trying to hypnotize the entire audience, right?
Yeah, and those at home.
Yeah, and those at home. Hopefully, whoever at home is watching. But anyway, at some point, like the watch changes and then it changes face and comes back and forth, and like sometimes
it flashes.
It flashes. Sometimes it's trickery. Sometimes it's not. And then at the end, it goes whop, and it just gets like quiet. And then he goes like, Gus, you are hypnotized and under my command. He goes, oh, I don't think so. And he goes, quiet. And then you just see him like, like go dead, right? And like the audience is quiet too, right? And he goes, hey, I think you have a cut on your cheek. And he goes, oh, you might have cut yourself shaving. And then during this thing, he kept on talking about worms. He's like, you don't like worms, dude. He's like, ooh, slimy, gooey things that
he's like, hate the things.
I hate the things. They live underground. So do they live in bodies? And then a worm starts coming out of his cheek.
Yeah, he's like, pulls one off, and he's like, oh. He's like, what is this? He's a worm. And then he's like, they're all, and then he's like, oh, I feel them inside me.
Yeah, he takes off his shirt.
And he totally goes like old school, like
80s horror movie.
It was, yes, he eviscerates himself.
Yeah, he pulls out his stomach, but there's no guts. It's just bloody worms. Just like pour out of his stomach. And he goes, it's on my face. Like his eye pops out.
Yeah, everybody's freaking out. Yeah, he has one giant dong of a worm coming out of his face.
Yeah, he's got like the dune worm sticking out of his face, which I think was probably a sandworm. I think that's got to be a callback because they did look pretty sandwormy towards the end of the thing.
They did.
And then Carr, the skeptic, he's like, oh no, you're out of a trance. This isn't supposed to happen. And he goes, dreamers who are dreaming, stop now. And then everything returns to normal. Yeah. And then the sidekick is just standing there or sitting there with his shirt open and goes, oh, when are we going to get started? And the audience and everyone, everyone's like, oh my God, what happened? The only there were like a handful of people in the audience who weren't hypnotized, but
who didn't have suggested minds.
Yeah, and also Lily, the little girl, she's like, why was he acting funny? Like she didn't see it either because she's in on the trick. Because something is spooky is going on there, and they decide to play back the video and see what it really looked like, and it was actually just the sidekick, Gus,
just unbuttoning his shirt,
acting
ripping
weird.
into nothing, grabbing nothing.
Actually, that's kind of one of my favorite scenes where he's like, "I've never been more embarrassed in my life." So that was pretty good. But then Lily, the demon woman, says, why don't we play back the time when I was in my seance? And then like Carr's like, that sounds good to me. And then Jack, the host, is like, but we got to bring on like the lady with her band and do the costume march or whatever.
It's like, oh, we'll do it later. We'll do it later.
We'll do it later. We have to see. We have to know. We have to find out what happened. We have to get to the truth. And he's like, yeah, you know. And then they play back the video, and everything happened precisely the way
as they saw it happen.
And
don't tell me it didn't happen. I saw it happen.
They saw it happen. Not only that, but through all the video clicks, they were able to actually find footage of Jack's dead wife. Like inside, floating in space through the static. When they went frame by frame, and that's when Carr the skeptic was like, "You're in on this. You've been in on this the whole time. And
he's like, I'm going to need to take these tapes and do forensics on them.
We don't know what's happening. And they start playing back. Everything's going crazy. And I don't remember what actually instigated Lily to open up, but she went full crazy exorcist, possessed Beetlejuice mode at the end.
I think it was Carmichael setting her off.
Yeah, he just, his negative mojo ended up turning everyone into... to recept this beacon that Lily had opened, where her head literally opened up and turned into a Skype beam antenna thing.
And they, like a damn Pokemon.
Yeah. And then Gus, the sidekick, pulled out his cross. He goes, "The power of Christ compels you."
Yeah.
He's got
his head turned around.
He's got his head turned around. And then the doctor... what's her name?
Dr. June.
Dr. June, she pulls out her like evil eye like medallion. She's like, "Stop, you must stop this." And then the medallion gets turned around and starts slitting her throat and kills her.
Yeah.
And then
she dies.
Yeah, and then sleazy producer guy, Leo the producer guy, goes to Jack's like, "Come on, man, we gotta go."
He grabs him and takes him out of the studio.
Yeah, just grabs him, takes him out of the studio. And then that's when we enter full like movie mode. This turns into a movie.
Yeah. Yep.
And Jack is actually going like back in time to other shows. You see him like talking to like
because he stepped into backstage with the producer. It like closes the screen and closes the door, but as he opens it, thinking he's on the other side, he's entering back onto his set where nothing has happened.
Yeah, and it's nothing has happened, but he's in the past because the guy Gus is there. He's like, "It's Jack," and then
they'll start laughing maniacally, like the crowd, and you don't see faces. Everyone's a silhouette, and then they all just stop.
I feel like Skeleton Guy was there. Oh, and there was
Skeleton Guy was there.
Yeah, and there was a creepy moment where they brought out the animal expert, and she brought out that evil sandworm. He's like, "Look at this."
Oh yeah.
She's like, "What is that?" He's like, "Don't be afraid of him. Like, he doesn't bite hard."
She puts it right to his mouth. I'm like, "Oh."
Yeah, and then you see her like him back in like a caveman sketch from like something.
Yeah.
Like Biondo.
He jumps out of he drops an F-bomb, and they're like, "That's not in the show." And
we didn't rehearse that line.
Yeah, then he ends up somehow. What is it? He ends up in bed with his dying wife.
Well, what happens?
And he is. Go ahead.
What happens is like the set opens up at that point.
Oh yes.
Like it opens up. Do you remember Roundhouse on Nickelodeon where like sets would like open up? I don't know. It was on Snick a long time ago. I don't know. It's kind of remind me of that.
Vague.
I feel like this movie would do well as a theater play.
Yeah, I think so too.
I think it would play better that way. Kind of like in Phantom of the Opera, where like if you see that in the theater, the actual opera, the chandelier does fall on the audience, like it's part of the effect. Whoosh, but it like moves.
Oh, that'd be cool.
Yeah, no, it's happened. Like I saw it. Like don't tell me it didn't happen. I saw it happen.
I get to watch that play live. But that's freaking dope.
Yeah. But anyway. What happened? Okay. So the studio opens up and it's his wife on her deathbed. Because he had an apparition of his wife saying like, "I guess you sold your soul to the devil," but like evil, right? This one, when it opens up, is like, "I've been trying to reach you, and now that I can, you know what you have to do." And apparently, like you gave up, you became famous. Exit wife stage left. That's what it costed you.
Yeah,
but you have to do now. And she hands him the Kandarian dagger.
Yeah,
And she goes, "Stop the hurting."
Chekhov's gun.
Yeah, "Stop the pain." And he stabs his wife on her deathbed.
Yeah, in the chest.
Or maybe I think it was the gut. I feel like it was like.
Oh yeah, the gut, the abdomen.
Yeah. And then the minute he does that, like the second he does that, he's revealed that he killed Lily. Everyone who just died like earlier was
Still dead.
And everything is quiet. And he looks around and he goes, "Dreamers here awake. Dreamers here awake," like Carr did when he thought he needed to take control of the scene again.
Yeah.
And then that's how it ends.
And as he's saying that, all you hear the police sirens approaching.
Yeah. And then, we cut to technical difficulties. And then the word changed from like that's the end or something.
Yeah. And that was it.
Yeah. Now that I think about it, I think there was also during the 16:9 video movie presentation or the hypnosis part that he had.
Yeah.
They did show him selling his soul in the tall trees, but it was like, but it was like old school, like elementary school, like pageant.
Yeah.
Stuff
so weird.
But it was fun. And I don't think I was necessarily terrified.
Yeah, I wasn't. I was more enamored with the way, like I said, the filmmaking. The filmmaking for me is what drew me in. Mm-hmm. It wasn't the movie itself per se.
But I did like the 80s body horror, literally. Because I feel like CG now, like I know CG when I see it and it's not scary. So if they had done those scenes CG wise, like when the girl's head rips open, you can tell that there's like a dummy in there with its head like split open when if she moved around and looked at things. Because you know what it reminded me of now that I think about it? Remember when the T-1000 got his head shot by the shotgun?
Yeah, I saw it. I was just like, what is happening?
That was pretty cool.
Ridiculous.
But like I said, definitely check it out. Let me see if I got any other notes here. Worm Man, Theremin feedback. We saw that. Yeah, because it was cool because it was like an episode of the Tonight Show. Ultimately, and I wish they
just as short, by the way.
Yeah, an hour and a half. A cool hour and a half. So if you ever see the Tonight Show, it takes about an hour and a half to 2 hours to actually shoot. Yeah. Because they got to set the stage up. I remember I was watching Late Night with Jimmy Kimmel live. I remember Jared Harris was the interviewee or the guest. That's it. He was the guest, and the audio cut out, right? And they do it live to tape, which is kind of how we do this show, where we record all the different cameras. And his audio cut out, and then you heard like the PA like turn on. It's like, "Hey Jimmy, we lost audio. We got to take it back." And he goes, "Oh no, whatever shall we do?" And then
oh no,
yeah. And then okay, well, hang on, we'll find the okay, we'll think we fixed it. Okay, just take it back to that time was at the beach.
Wouldn't have happened if it was Nicolas Cage.
Yeah. So yeah, exactly. So they fixed it. You broke the audio. Yeah. Gosh, I'm the Rocket Man. You're the Rocket Man. So.
Yeah, man.
Where was I going with this?
I have no idea. I was on for the ride though, man. I'm just rolling.
I'm just saying things happened during the live to tape, so they just said maybe they could have like redone it or had a longer take or whatever. Yeah. It makes sense, but it was good. So I am actually going to give it a B+. Late Night is a great callback to the time when Tonight shows were fun, body horror and demonic possessions were all the rage. I strongly recommend it. It's a spooky good time. I would have liked it to be just a little scarier, though.
Man, I'm going to kind of agree with you. I'm going to do one less. I'm going to give it a C+. I said if it wasn't for the kitschy filmmaking, this thing wouldn't have gotten far. It's a tried and true horror mechanic with the added twist of involving technology in the obtuse way they did. Because I'm going to tell you, that 4x3 constant would have been so much better. Definitely appreciated the nuances, but the finish line felt further and further away until you finally trip over the finish line, and that trip is when all hell breaks loose. And for this guy, it was a little too late. So I like all of it happened. You're watching the movie, you're enthralled by the movie, and then by the time you realize it, you're like, the movie is almost over. When is this stuff going to start happening? And then it starts just all happening really fast. And you can enjoy the movie for the stick, but you won't miss much if you don't. Although if you are into filmmaking and just want to, make a halfway to Halloween movie, then definitely watch this one. It's not one that's going to disappoint you for sure.
Yeah, and now that I think about it, they should have done a couple of more tricks. And I was thinking like a 4x3 ratio. Like, what if they filmed this in IMAX so you didn't know like exactly?
Oh,
yeah, right.
That would have been
because a 4:3 ratio is a lot more like in tune with the IMAX ratio, right? So you could actually seen this in an IMAX theater, because in the old days, a lot of these shows, maybe not like the Tonight shows, but like Get Smart and like just a lot of old programs were actually filmed on film. So they're actually in like an HD,
like big format.
Yeah, and I think that would have been kind of crazy if they actually had that available to them.
Oh man, it would have probably been cheaper.
Well, yeah,
maybe.
I don't know how much IMAX costs to film. I know they're noisy.
It's expensive.
Yeah.
It's like $20,000 every few minutes, I think, depending on what you're filming, which medium you're filming onto.
Film is expensive, people. The digital cut costs a lot.
70 millimeter film? Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
The average film roll is a 35 millimeter. That's diagonal. So imagine twice as big. That's crazy.
Yeah, but it's good stuff. I like it, and I think it might play well during the Halloween especially. But I think as filmmakers, when you're introduced to scenes that are not in the movie, it takes you kind of out of it. And maybe that's kind of like why we didn't find it as scary. Where the Blair Witch Project didn't stop being a found footage movie.
That movie was exhausting.
Yeah, it didn't stop, and I think that's kind of like where things kind of can take you out. Where maybe things, when they take you out, it should be part of it, or maybe just a title card or something.
Yeah, at least
that kind of thing. But definitely check it out. I always encourage everyone to see all the movies because they are, unless they are remakes of Pinocchio.
Oh,
which I still say.
Everything is CG. Everything, and then the movie just stops.
It just stops, and meanwhile we have like literally 30 seconds of Pinocchio sniffing horse poop. Who greenlit that?
I don't know, man. They greenlit a CGI cat. There wasn't much it was getting in the way of this movie.
Oh, look at me! I'm a Tom Hanks doing an Italian accent. Hey,
that's all he did.
Look at me.
He's like, I like clocks.
I like clocks. Look at my clock. It's Aladdin and the Lion King.
It's a clock missing a letter.
It's a clock missing a letter because my wife liked the clocks.
Go clock yourself, Tom Hanks.
Deadpool. I think that's the last time I saw Tom Hanks in a movie. Now that I think about it, he officially retired from acting after being
Honk Tanks.
Honk Tanks. I'm going to go to Susan Fushi after this, by the way. And get some California holes. California holes.
Oh, man. It's terrible, dude. Oh, God. As long as you don't get AIDS.
AIDS. Oh, worms in the sushi. Worms in the sushi. Worms in the body. What are you going to do?
Oh, no. Damn that goat.
But anyway, that has been our hot take on Late Night with the Devil. Remember to like, share, subscribe. Check us out on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, wherever you get your stuffs. We're everywhere. We're here. We're there. We're everywhere. I'm your host, Marc Rubalcaba, joined once again by Mr. Abel Pineda on Clubhouse Movies Podcast. We'll catch you next time.